honestly, the most valuable part of organizing at both of the schools is creating a sense of unity among the adjunct employees and the faculty. At CCAC, we're actually in the same unit as the full-time faculty, and that has created a lot of strength there. And it also just the sense that academic employees are beginning at both schools to see themselves as employees, as workers, rather than just as academics, or often in the case of adjuncts, they're doing this part-time, they're doing this in addition to other things, and don't necessarily see themselves as having a voice, having rights, being able to advocate for themselves and their students and their coworkers in the larger college or university system. And really, the growth of that awareness of teachers and instructors as employees, as workers, as people with rights and voice has been the biggest change that I've noticed so far. Honestly, I feel like more of a learning community. I've seen a lot of adjuncts get more involved in student affairs, in some of these other conversations at the university, whereas before they felt really outside of that, really alien, sort of coming in, teaching their class, and then leaving.
Seems to me the big deal, though, the 99% of my experience, is what I was looking through our contract, is basically it just lays out the parameters for our existence. So I know every single step towards getting tenure. I know exactly how the sabbatical process works. I know exactly what happens when I'm going to go up for promotion. And this is laid out at each step. There's deadlines. I know exactly who's on the committees. I know exactly how the decisions are made. And so, the whole process is lucid. And I've heard stories from so many people at other schools where it's a mystery. They don't know how promotion happens. They don't know who makes these decisions. They don't know who's getting paid. I can go online and see every pay grade of everybody in the university. So it seems to me it helps me relax. I mean, there's no surprises. I know exactly what to do and when to do it.
I think people just have to stand up, and it matters how many stand up. Because the more of you there are, the more power you have. I don't see any other way for an employee to be. If there was a union when Jeff came by, like I said yes.
Like if the union does nothing else for you, and it does a lot of other things, but at baseline, you have on retainer an attorney, an employment attorney. My dues are $46 a month. And for $46 a month, if I get into any kind of trouble at all, I can go right to my grievance chair, and if necessary, I can go to the attorney that we have who works for us, who's very good, and they help me. And I would love for anyone to tell me, outside of a union contract, where in the free market you can, for a third of your cable bill, have an attorney on retainer 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's something that very few people talk about. The pensions are great and the benefits are great, but in terms of having that kind of security, that to me is a huge thing. And then also being able to sit across the bargaining table from the provost or the dean or the president, the board of trustees is sitting behind them. And you're essentially kind of on equal footing.
In Canada, basically almost across the board, all of our colleges and all of our universities are already unionized. That has been the case for a long time. The adjuncts have language that allow them to go from what we call a term appointment to a continuing appointment. So they can actually, over a few years, achieve going from like traditional contract to permanent status with the employer. But one of the other things that really resonated with us was the Women of Steel program. So our bargaining unit is 75% women. And traditionally, it's no surprise to anyone here, but traditionally unions are male dominated and have been for a lot of years. So for us as women, it took us a little bit to see ourselves as not only as requiring, wanting, needing a place at the table with the employer, but we also needed a little bit of a push to see ourselves with a place at the table with a union. So when the Steelworkers were able to talk to us about their Women of Steel program, it had a huge impact. The Women of Steel program is within their bylaws, their constitution. It's, you know, inherent in what they do every day, but it also, it's not just a program, it's also something, I mean, I wear my Women of Steel bracelet every day and quite proudly. It let us know as women that we could have a place in the union, and not a place in the back seat, but a place right up at the table and be a part of it.
All the romance about, like, it's people banding together and collectively working toward a goal, brothers and sisters, locking arms, all that kind of stuff. In order for that to be true, it requires the employees to work, to participate in the union, which means if you have an issue, if you have a contract violation, you have to go to the grievance chair and tell them about it. You can't be afraid. And that happens a lot. People are like, oh, this is really unfair. Oh, that's a violation of contract. We should grieve that. I don't want to cause any trouble. That's not causing trouble. That's like, you know, standing up for your rights. And if people don't get involved, you know, then the union won't work. You know, the union is not, Jeff is awesome, but the union is not the staff people and the reps. It's the employees of the university or of the workplace. And they're the ones who, if they're going to have power of any kind, they have to participate. And that requires an enormous amount of time.
I got hired in '97, and I thought I had a hard time with the job market. And I did. But it's worlds worse now.
Yep.
It's just appalling.
Especially for liberals.
And, I mean, the universities will treat us like widgets. And that's fine. I can accept that, but I don't want to be a widget all by myself. You know, they will trade me in and out. And I went to small liberal arts universities where I thought I was going to go into an organization where I'd be deeply devoted to the institution, and the institution would be deeply devoted to me. And no, you know, I mean, they would let me go because of the money that I cost them if they could replace me with a certain amount of adjuncts. They've got no, you're not going to shed tears over that. So we have a thing written into our contract called Meet and Discuss, where every 2 weeks the executive committee of the union meets with the top administration. And this is where they have concern brought up, we're going to do this, what's the union response? Provost is upset at something, executive committee is upset at something, so they hash it out. I suppose what happens then, and then if it goes to a grievance, and I go to a grievance, well, we're going to have to grieve that because they can talk about it. I suppose the thing that helps is that there's a forum to do that. You're not sitting in your offices being anxious with your stomach turning about, I don't know where to go about this. You've got a process. I mean, that's what it spells out for you. And so there's always, in fact, more open communication, I would say, from my experience, than kind of everybody being closed up and not knowing who to talk to and being afraid, because they're there for you.
Just to underline the importance of communication, when we talked to the administration at Point Park and CCAC asking for like the list of adjuncts as is legally required, they were like, well, we have no idea who works here. Basically, the idea that these addresses and this list of adjunct employees existed was false. They didn't know who was working for the school, nor did we. As a result, just that process of, and it benefits the employer as well, right? Yep. Now CCAC and Point Park have a list of phone numbers and addresses instead of like a scrap of paper on the political science chair's like desk with, you know, the person who teaches early American lit, you know, something like that. They like call up once a year. There's actually like an organized, comprehensible way of communicating with these people that have been essential to running the schools for decades. I mean, there are, I think, around 1,000 people throughout a year who adjunct at CCAC across 4 campuses. There would not be a community college of Allegheny County without the adjuncts, and there has been no way to communicate or talk to these people until this has happened. It's such a basic, easy thing that benefits literally everyone from the support staff and secretarial staff to the higher administration and the full-time faculty, but it just hasn't existed without the union. And now there is union contract language of who makes the list, who maintains the list, where it is kept, and how you actually talk to these thousands of people who are teaching at this school, which is so basic but really essential.
I guess on that note, we've gone through all the questions online. If there's none in the audience, I guess I'll just say any final thoughts.
Sign your card today, ASAP, don't hesitate.
I'm very glad that the adjuncts and the full-timers at Chatham would be the same bargaining unit, is that correct? I think that's huge. I love that. I think the state system's unions are much stronger as a result of having them together. I would love for other schools, I'm not going to say who, to have that situation too. I think the adjuncts especially will be empowered. But the fact full-timers will too, because it's going to, I think it creates an incentive to hire people and keep them around and to really invest in them whenever they're all in the same union. So I think that specifically with the Chatham thing, I think it's excellent.
If you don't organize together, if you feel like it might be easier to just organize the tenured faculty or the tenure track faculty, you might as well not organize. Because all they'll do is hire adjuncts. You can organize all you want as tenured faculty, and if they can hire all the adjuncts they want, it doesn't
Exactly right.
So, I mean, and aside from what I would argue is an ethical responsibility to your profession and to the development of, in my case, English or the humanities, that we want to give people jobs, because jobs create stabilities in departments, it distributes work, committee work over a greater number of people, because many committees can only have tenure track faculty members on them. Aside from all that, I think we have a real ethical responsibility to our profession. That's, I think, crucial.
Well, thank you guys very much.
Thank you.